One thing we rely far too much upon as a collective is motivation. Having a reason to do certain things, finding purpose for you to go to the gym, for you to study, for you to do a hard thing which you've been putting off for a while. It's great to have it. It's really good to be motivated. It helps a lot, if I'm being honest, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree. Motivation is a great thing. Purpose is a great thing. Having a reason to do something is a great thing. And it can definitely help you do hard things which you wouldn't have wanted to do if you didn't have the motivation to do it. But here's where the issue comes in: the reliance. We rely on motivation for us to do these things. We rely on having a purpose, a mission, something in sight for us to do this certain thing. So that when it fades, when the motivation eventually fades, when we get up one day and we forget why we're even doing this in the first place, we don't do it. And then we don't do it the next day, then we don't do it the day after, and all the progress that we've made slowly starts to decline. Not by a noticeable amount, but it definitely happens. And by the time we've noticed it, we're overcome by shame, guilt, and sadness to the fact that we are not what we were previously. We've lost progress. And if you started your self-improvement as someone who had all these negative traits and bad habits, slowly starting to become that person a second time really makes you feel so much shame. Knowing that you're doing certain habits which you did previously that you know you don't actually want to do. And a lot of this is a result of us not acting upon the things we need to do, even when we're not motivated to do them. And I know David Goggins speaks on this 95% of the time, and I'm sure a lot of people would get what message I'm saying here is heavily inspired by his, and it is, because I want to reiterate it because it is the truth. Life is not all sunshine and rainbows, to quote Rocky here. It's difficult. It's really demanding and unpredictable and ruthless in the most hard times. But we always have the choice to act. The best preparation is action, and you don't need motivation to do it. I think a lot of people have in them something which internally motivates them. Not everyone is motivated by the external things like the TikTok edits, the YouTube shorts and stuff like that. Maybe some people are, maybe some people haven't had the chance to find their, inner motivation yet, but I think a lot of people have this internal drive which they haven't tapped into yet. I think that sort of plays into what purpose is as well, but it can be a bit of both depending on how you utilize it in certain scenarios. But getting back to my point, this internal drive, this internal motivator, this purpose, whatever you want to call it, this is always present, even when you're not externally motivated. You always know in your core somewhere that getting up at 6 o'clock or going to the gym today is going to be good for you. And that should be able to overrule the motivation that you lack. This internal core should drive you instead of this external force. And you've got to learn to foster a relationship with this inner core, because this is the one that should be guiding you. I sort of treat it as a second person. A lot of the times when I'm speaking to myself, I speak in the third person, or I speak as if I'm speaking to somebody else. A lot of the times I'd say, okay, Cyrus, you've got to get this in your head now. If you have to go here, there's no real option to say no. The yes is always the correct answer in this scenario. Or sometimes I even create an analogy in my head where I'm talking to my future child, where I'm saying okay, son, when I was your age at this day, I didn't want to go to the gym, or I didn't want to do this, but I did it anyway. And that helps me tap into this internal drive and this internal force that isn't super apparent to me in that current situation, because I'm maybe lacking external motivation and stuff like that. So you've got to find your way to tap into that thing. And where this thing forms initially is you taking this first step into your self-improvement. What was your first reason for you to start doing a good habit? For me, the first ever thing I got into was weightlifting. And my mom bought me weights, and I felt like I had to use them. That was the first thing that got me into doing this as well. But then later on down the line, my closest friend got into the gym before I did, and that sparked competitivity. So I've got all of these forces which kind of join together to create this internal drive, which applies to all things, by the way. So you've got to base all of your actions off of this internal core. Now, a lot of people might not be getting what I'm trying to say here, but it's kind of a spiritual thing as well. Like, it's not something you can access. It's not something you always can point out and say, hey, look, there's my internal drive. It's something you just kind of inherently know. Like, maybe it's an instinctual thing. You know, maybe you're driven by the desire to be important, the desire to leave a legacy, the desire to die without regret or to live without fear. Maybe that's your internal drive, but you just don't know it yet. Maybe it's a collection of those things. But you know for certain that you need to listen to it. And it all just depends on you doing, instead of waiting to find something to do it. Like, it's so frustrating. You know what you need to do, and you know what you should do, but you don't do it. Why is that? Why is it that you choose to put on the Xbox and play some video games instead of studying when you know you should study? You also know that studying gets you to great places, but you also know that the enjoyment that you feel from playing these games is temporary. So why is it that you don't do these things you know you should be doing? It's because you're not basing your actions off of what you actually internally want. You're letting your brain being guided by this caveman-esque need and desire for pleasure, instead of using your rational side to think, okay, this is what I should actually be doing. I'm going to align my actions today with what I internally want, what I know I should be doing. And through that, I'll get results. Not immediately, not tomorrow, not the week after, but I know that results will be guaranteed. I've just got to sacrifice happiness for a bit. And that's easy enough to do. That's an emotion. That's a feeling. Feelings are a state of mind. They're not permanent. So accept these sacrifices, you know. Don't just base your actions off of what you feel like doing or if you're motivated. And do what you know you should do. And don't feel guilty about not doing the thing which you wanted to do. You know, don't feel like you're missing out on anything, because you're really not. These things, they don't offer much value in a reality. Video games only offer benefit in that video game that's being played. You don't gain anything from it really, other than a conversation or maybe the enjoyment you feel while you're playing it. Those are the only two benefits, and they're fine to play in moderation, but you know that you should be doing what you need to do first, and then that. Align things with your internal core, and I guarantee you'll be much, much happier in the long run. You may not realize it at first, you know, you may not see it at first, and it's hard to realize. Eventually you'll look up one day and you'll realize, I don't feel sad anymore. I've got all these things around me which I've worked for. I've got all these things around me which I can take pride in, and that makes me happy. So make 2025 the best year of your life by acting, even when you don't want to. And I guarantee by the end of the year, the things which you will have at your disposal, the things which you will have built from the hard work you put in and the discipline and the late nights, the early mornings, these things will be so much worth the hard work that you put in. It just takes time. Now, I want to thank you for watching the video. If you've taken anything from value, please apply it in your own life. You know, I make these videos for you specifically. And I genuinely want you to improve. And I'd rather you not even watch the video if you're not taking anything from it. So please apply this in your life. Try and improve. Make this year the best year of your life, because I know for certain it's going to be mine. I'm going to be doing the same exact thing as you. Alright, so strive for greatness. Don't be a vape puffing nerd.